On the morning show today, Mayor Todd Coppernoll is in the studios with us to talk about all the great things going on in the city of Richland Center and the surrounding areas. So hello to you again.
Good morning, Phil. How you doing?
Doing well. Here we are in November.
We are indeed, and I'll let everybody know that this time we are pre-recording the show, and I'll tell you why. So we're sitting down here on Friday recording for Monday, and the reason I am, a lot of people in town have been asking how my mother's doing, and I appreciate that, and she does too. And when you're hearing this, on Monday, Mom will actually be in surgery in Madison. She didn't mind me telling the world that. I don't have a lot to add to that other than to just let you know. That's why we pre-recorded the show. And for those of you who know Mom, who know my mom, thank you for your concern. Thoughts and prayers are appreciated.
Well, let's talk about some of the good things going on around the area. Successful cross-country team?
You know what? That's awesome. I love that. So the Richland Center Ithaca cross-country team has qualified for state, I believe, by the time this airs. Its state meet will be over.
Right.
But I want to congratulate everybody associated with that. First time in 50 years, second time in history that this team has made it to the state tournament, the boys team. And for perspective for some of our listeners, Ted Wheelock, I believe, was the coach when they went the last time. And a lot of us knew Ted. For perspective, Ted retired from teaching in 1981. So if you don't realize how long ago 50 years is, you start to think of it in those terms and you get the point. And I just wanted to say I was on the boys cross country team all 4 years I was in high school, and we certainly weren't at it was different when I was there. The other teams used to bring our bus around to pick us up. You know, they'd be done and they'd have their lunch eaten and they'd come around and wait for us to finish and grab us with the bus. It was a different time. But I wanted to say I'm really proud of those kids, and I want to make sure that I congratulate their families and friends, the coaching staff. Cross country is one of those sports that's just, for most people, kind of there. It doesn't get talked about a lot. You know, the football team gets the homecoming game and the parade and all of that, and the cross country team in a lot of schools, the kids show up for the fall awards banquet and they get their letter for their jacket and they announce next year's team captain and all that, and they get the polite applause because everybody's there to talk about the football team. That's just reality. Great job, Richland Center Ithaca boys cross country team. By now, we know the outcome. Honestly, again, since this was pre-recorded, I don't care how the team does at state. I care that the team got to state, and I want to commend everyone involved. It's a very big deal.
News in the city, Panorama Estates. Can you give us an update, Mayor Todd?
I can, and you can see for yourself if you drive up there. Dirt has been moved to begin construction of the second building. Yes, it's long overdue. Yes, there's been frustration along the way, both amongst city government and the builder, trying to get here as building costs exploded and then interest rates to borrow the money exploded too. The thing got put on hold multiple times. We all know that, but they're up there now. And they got the dirt they started, and the building inspector has the blueprint now that he needs before he'll issue building permits. So the expectation as of right now is that I would say next week the building permits will be issued, and then I would guess here around the 10th or 12th of November, you'll probably see the beginning of the concrete for the foundation. From my last conversation with Mr. Dwayne Kleinsasser, who's the builder, the general contractor, that I expect them to start doing that work around the 10th or so of November. And then they'll obviously, I think it's about, with no delays, like a 13-month build or maybe slightly longer than that. So it's going to be a little while yet before those are ready to rent. And, if you get any delays, it could be a year and a half from now. But getting the construction going here is obviously that key element we've been trying to get to. And if you go up there, you'll see this big mound of dirt that a few days ago wasn't there because it was under the grass. So the excavator's been up there working. Our director of public works, Jason Glassbrenner's been up on the site. I've been up there. City council's very excited about this, as they should be. City administrator is, and I've heard from a lot of people around town. I knew the day the excavator got up there because Dwayne told me when they were coming, but I knew when I started to get photographs texted to me from people who live up there that were excited to see it.
Is there a penalty because they didn't get it started when they said they would?
Specifically, no. They're not in the terms that you're thinking, but TIF financing, tax incremental financing, the way that works, I'm not going to give a speech on this, but basically, as the builder pays the property taxes that are due on that new building, a portion of that money is then returned to the builder to use to retire the debt they incurred to build it. So no, there's not like an amount of money being withheld or that kind of thing. But this whole time, that TIF has been burning down. These days have been passing. There's every TIF district, every TID, which is a tax incremental district, has an end date on it when it is created. And I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head when this one is. But this was signed in 2018. I wasn't even mayor yet when this was first done. And so that TID, that tax incremental district, was put in place then. And the end date does not move, even though the construction got delayed. So it actually puts more pressure, if you will, on the builder because there's less time left. Think of it this way. They will pay less years' worth of property taxes within that time now to get money returned to them to recoup the debt. So that's how that works. And that's why it's like that. It's one of the reasons it's why it's like that, and that's actually state law.
Staying on that side of town, the Richland Center School District. Richland District has been in negotiations, I know, and the county had kind of made their mark, and now the district sounds like has answered as well about some campus property.
Yeah, I think this is a good solution. The gymnasium at the campus and Melville Hall will become the property of the Richland School District. I have not talked to Steve Board about what the district wants to do with Melville Hall, but it's been discussed publicly for a while that they may have interest in the gym. And if you think about it, it makes sense. They were saying they needed more gym space, and that gym's right down the hill from the school. It wouldn't have made any sense, I think, to most people to put a very expensive construction of a new gym, $10 or $12 million into a referendum when you have a gym down the hill. And that gym does need some work. I know the showers, locker rooms aren't in good shape. I think a little bit of roof work in the doors, things like that. But the gym floor is in great shape, and the bottom line is it'll cost a lot less money to sort of refurb that gym than it ever would have to build one. And plus, it's right there. It would just make sense. So, and the other part of this that I don't have any details on yet, but I know the folks at the Simons Recreation Complex and the folks at the school district intend to come up with an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that would allow Simons access to the gym. So some things that I know in the future, perhaps Simons members can enjoy that gym for walking, basketball, volleyball, pickleball, whatever you might do indoors in the wintertime. That's all got to get sorted out. It's early in that process, but I have no reason to believe it won't get sorted out. And then I'm sure Steve would be willing at some point to come down here and explain how the district will use Melville Hall. So 2 of those buildings anyway. Well, they already own East Hall, where they put the partner school. So 3 of the campus buildings are now be owned by the district and will remain in place.
It just makes sense. I mean, it's pretty much all the same campus now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, really, the high school's right up the hill. So and Hive Drive is a city street. And we'll be talking to the county about plans for other development possibilities on the property. But I would envision it sometime. I just see it inevitable. What is likely to become a city street, sort of running onto the campus property off Hive Drive. My vision, and I don't know if this will be exactly what they do, but my vision is where you turn left to go to the school, perhaps there will be like a street to the right to access the property, and you could get to Simons. And there's been discussion sporadically, but I expect it to heat back up now. I intend to force it to heat back up now about maybe putting some homes on the hill behind the campus buildings, not where they are. That was first proposed about 2021, and there were just too many layers. The campus was still in operation, which means that land was all in a lease to the UW Board of Regents. Some people thought it was a great idea. Other people were afraid of it because they feared Ironically, unfortunately, that it might lead to a closure of the campus or help signal that that was the right move. It was never anybody's intent, but the homes didn't get built, and now we're here. So I don't see a reason not to pursue that now. I really don't. And Mr. Dale Bender, who, of course, worked for City Utilities for years and years, a lot of your listeners will know him, had drawn up a plan at the time that would have put, I can't remember, 17 or 18 single-family homes kind of up behind there. Well, those buildings have had City Utilities all this time, so getting hookups to new residential lots shouldn't be super difficult. And then you are going to need a very expensive street with curb and gutter, though. So that's where, again, it's still county property. The city can't just do that. And just kind of getting ahead of myself, but I've done a few of these conversations. So if you anticipate a builder potentially asking for tax incremental financing, a TIF district or a TID, TID, which is very common because construction is very expensive. If that happens, the city has the ability, the legal ability to pursue that, whereas I don't believe the county does. I'll check with our attorney on that, but I don't believe the county can do that without the city. We can, so maybe an opportunity for some collaboration if we need it between the city and the county to perhaps get some single-family homes built behind where the campus buildings have been, which, as I just said, would require a street with curb and gutter, getting utility hookups up there, which they're on the grounds, so we should be able to do that. And I intend to push that issue. I thought it was a great idea the first time. It's still a great idea, and we need them. So we'll see where that goes.
The last time we were here, we were kind of right on the verge of Story Field and a decision being made on that, and it sounds like things are moving forward.
Yep, the city council voted unanimously, in this case means 8-0, to approve the land sale to the developer. And what we're doing now, that was approved by ordinance. At the council, they did that, and that then was reviewed. That ordinance was reviewed just the other day by the Plan Commission, just to kind of review that it didn't conflict. The ordinance that was adopted does not conflict with the city comprehensive plan. It does not conflict with the city's land use map. It does not conflict with zoning. It does not. For instance, nobody's trying to put a factory in a residential neighborhood, that kind of thing. That there's no obvious reason that what the council approved should not proceed. Procedurally, just through what did the comprehensive plan say the goals of the city were, what did the land use map say, what does zoning say. One thing I will say is that neighborhood is zoned R1, which means single family residential homes. It will need a zoning change to R2, which is residential 2. That means duplexes as opposed to single family homes, because of course the plan the council has approved would call for 8 duplexes on the property. Now that will have to get there, the builder will have to have this platted. You can look that up online. Have it platted. What that does, it surveys the property. It draws the boundaries on the lots. Because, for instance, you need to make sure you're not violating lot sizes, that they're not too small, that you're not violating setbacks as required by the city, things like that. So it'll have to be surveyed. It'll have to be platted, and then all of that has to be approved. And by the council. Now, to do that, that will require a public hearing, because it will be platted and then zoning change from R1 to R2 to allow duplexes. That will require a public hearing. When will that be? I have no idea. I just don't know at this point. What has to happen first is the builder, the developer, has to get there. So get the surveying done, get the engineering done. This is where the lot lines would be and so on. Has to be drawn up to be presented, obviously. The Plan Commission and the City Council will both need to review these things, and that'll happen, but I don't know. It's just too soon to tell anybody when. And again, it's about to be November here, so there won't be building up there for a while, because it's going to be winter and all of that. Plus, a project like this takes a great deal of engineering by the builder, and I just told you why. You've got this open field that, of course, will have 8 lots created, and will have a street. That's going to be a city street, a cul-de-sac. That all of that has to get engineered, laid out, brought to the Plan Commission and the council to get it platted, and then that gets filed at the courthouse. to be kept on file if there's ever, in the future, sort of anyone wants to contest where the lots were supposed to be, any of that. Well, that's what approval of the plat does. That's what that plat would serve, 50 years from now. Somebody says, well, they were supposed to be over there, or that's supposed to be mine. That approved plat serves as, quote, the truth if it went to court. That's why all of this stuff is prescribed at the state level, and it's just what the city's going to have to do with the builder to get there. And all of it's going to take some time. So, that's kind of as far as we are at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it could be this time next year when we're talking about things.
It certainly could be. And I don't know that. So I wouldn't say 3 months. I wouldn't say 9 months because I don't know yet. It just depends on how much time it takes for this developer and builder to get with the engineers and get it right and get it to planning. And does it go smoothly there, or are there more questions? Does it need to get revised? There's no way to know that yet. We're not there.
What about Cobblestone, the hotel? What's the status of that?
Yeah, great question. I just spoke to them yesterday. They're very optimistic. What they're doing right now, so they're raising private capital investors for a portion of the cost of the build, and then these people will own a percentage of the hotel. And they've been in the process of doing that. Now, I will say this. Anybody that might have interest should reach out, because the folks at Cobblestone would be happy to discuss that. They're very happy with how it's going. They've been coming right along, getting people involved and people committed to invest. I don't know because, honestly, I don't really want to know. I'm the mayor. I'm an elected official representing the people. I don't want into their business side of the deal. I don't want in it, and I'm not in it. So I don't know how much more money they still need to raise. I didn't ask that question, but they did tell me they have some of it, and we kind of left it at that. But they kind of just let me know to just tell people that they'd love to hear from them if people had interest in potentially investing in the hotel. Other than that, I'm sure people have heard this, but the intended location is downtown on Orange Street. It would be just north next to the Quick Trip, right across the street from the bowling alley. And part of the reason, well, there's two big reasons. One is a hotel in the downtown that we think would have great potential to bring some new life to that part of the city. And the other one is literally there is a banquet hall across the street. So if you're going to put it downtown and it's going to want highway frontage, which that is, it was just a kind of a lucky break, but the land that was available happened to be there. And so it's kind of just a logical place for a hotel, and just from the hotelier's viewpoint, and a logical place from the city's viewpoint. Bring some new life downtown, get some new construction on the highway down there.
The mayor for the city of Richland Center, Todd Coppernoll, is our guest on a Monday morning show. We'll be right back. Richland Center Mayor Todd Coppernoll is our guest on WRCO's Morning Show. Todd, could you talk about the city budget?
Yeah, man, what a good time. Man, I'll tell you what, I've been telling everybody for months, that this year's city budget would be a challenge. It has been. The school districts are going through it. The townships are going through it. The villages are going through it. The county's going through it. Inflation, to just get right to the point, the inflation of the last few years has simply overrun municipalities' ability to come up with money. I mean, Madison has a big budget shortfall right now. Milwaukee does. La Crosse is looking for ways to cut money. Dane County, 31 million light. Going to leave 50 jobs unfilled. Things like that going on. It's just the way it is right now. Just like it is in so many of our households. Everything costs so much more than it did 4 years ago. And it's not like our incomes kept pace. Well, city tax bases certainly didn't. County tax bases certainly didn't either. So we're almost there. The Finance Committee has met with myself, with the city administrator, and several other members of the city staff several times, trying to get there. What do we keep in? What do we take out? Because it's not easy. And, when you think about what elected people do, I've learned a lot in my 5.5 years as mayor, and I also was an older person before that. A lot of people don't understand the role of the city council members. honestly, the school board members or the county board members, and what you're really there to do. And these are the decision-making bodies. So the city council, those 8 people, they make the choices on behalf of the city. For instance, and their biggest job every year is to enact the city budget. It's millions of dollars of everybody's money. What do we spend it on? What do we not spend it on? From where do we get it? Are we going to spend some cash that we have? Are we going to do short-term borrowing to pay for a road work? Every municipality in this state is going through the same thing right now. And to their credit, the city staff and the city council have worked together and worked very diligently to get there. And we're nearly done. One component that's left to sort out, we're going to segue here, the ambulance service, which I know has been a hot topic around town. So, of course, the city will participate in providing an ambulance service for our people in 2026. And we know that there's a lot of local support to stay with the Richland EMS rather than contracting with somebody else. We know that. And I'm sure the townships and the county have heard it too, the message received. So that's where the effort is right now, is to do that. And right now, there's no way out of this. And it's understood, it's justified, but a significant cost increase is coming to the city, to the townships, to Boaz, to Yuba. Everybody's going to get a significant cost bump on what it's going to cost to run Richland EMS, because there hadn't been an increase in several years. And as everybody knows, costs are up on everything. And when you combine not having done an increase for quite a while with things costing more, well, tomorrow got here. And so the city's looking at, depending on where this ends, roughly $50,000 a year more than it was costing, roughly that. The townships and villages all have significant cost increases too. It's just the way it is. So you got to fit that into a budget. It's not easy, but it's worth it. It's the ambulance. There's no choice here. Come on. You got to provide an ambulance. And our people that serve us at Richland Ambulance, Richland EMS, are great people working very hard for all of us. And we're doing the best we can for all of them too. And it's a challenge. They know it, we know it, but we're all gonna get there on this thing. We're trying to figure it out. So right now, the city and the county are trying to work together, try to figure this thing out, because what the county has done is they've asked everyone who participates in this service to sign a 1-year agreement, basically to, number one, keep the ambulance service running, but then number two, allow next year to figure out a more long-term solution. Well, okay, but there's challenges here all over the place, and so it's not resolved. At the time of this recording, it's not resolved, and until it's resolved, the city's not going to be able to finalize the budget, because we have to, of course, account for how much that costs, and until we're done here, we don't have a final number. Not meaning that as criticism of anyone, but it's been very challenging and frustrating, I think, for a lot of people, and I'll be happy when we have a solution that we can announce publicly. And again, I mean, me personally, I've said this many times, my term is up in April and I'm not running again, so there will be a different mayor by the time next year's budget comes around, but I'll still live here, and my hope and intent, for what it's worth, is to retain the Richland EMS service and to have them be the long-term solution. That's going to take, and it's why we're talking about this, it's going to take a significant change in how our ambulance service is funded. I want you to ask yourselves some things. This has nothing to do with anyone who works at Richland EMS or the quality of their work or their level of commitment. I'm not talking about that. I'm going to ask you to think for yourself if you think it sounds logical for Richland EMS to be buying a used ambulance from a place the size of Muscadet, because that happened. Does it sound logical to you for the Richland Ambulance Service, Richland EMS, to buy an old building with a leaky roof, and then now to be saying we don't have the money to fix that leaky roof, so we're just working on it while we keep catching water? Those are signs of a funding issue. And there's no getting around it. There's been a funding issue, because I think when the Joint Ambulance Committee was founded, which is like 10 years ago now, might be longer than that. I wasn't living here when it happened. I think the intent was to perhaps form an ambulance district within a year or two and get a different funding model in place and all that. But that just didn't take place. It didn't get done. So we're here now, and everything costs a lot more than it used to. We've just covered that. And we need the ambulance service is as important as police and fire, is as critical as police and fire, and needs to be respected on the same level as police and fire. And what that's done is it's put everybody in an uncomfortable position right now, saying we agree, but now how? What are we going to do? So we'll see. We'll see what the final outcome is. My message is I believe in the Richland Ambulance Service, Richland EMS. I believe in everybody working down there. I know it's been stressful for all of the elected people, for the staff at the city, the county, and all the township boards. I get it. Yuba, I heard you at the joint ambulance meetings talking about how very difficult this was going to be to pull off for your budget. I'm fully committed to finding the best solution we can all get to as soon as we can.
This has been an education for all of us, because I always assumed that ambulance was required, that it had, just like police are, I just always assumed that was something that happened.
So this is a really interesting thing that I can't explain. I don't know why the state did this, and I'm going to direct people to Mr. Kerry Severson, who's a member of the county board and is the current president of the Joint Ambulance Committee. Kerry has served on the ambulance for years on the committee, and he's done a good job of keeping himself educated. And what he did in his role as president of the JAC, the Joint Ambulance Committee, the last time we met, he brought printed copies of state statute that talked about who is required to provide ambulance. And for a city, I don't remember word for word, but the key point is a city may contract with an individual or group for transport of the sick and the injured. May. A township shall. So it's actually a requirement by statute at the state level for a township to provide ambulance, but a city may. Does that make any? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I think the county was also a may, that the townships were the only shall. And he brought copies of 3 different things, and we're all reading it. And the reason he did that was to point that out. That was done, who knows when those laws were written, but I don't get it. But that's what it actually says. Now, and again, I'm not giving a speech on this because I'm not going to know all the details. There is state law that comes in. So like a county and a city, believe it or not, according to that statute Mr. Severson brought to the Joint Ambulance Committee, are not required to provide an ambulance service. However, a different state law when it comes to emergency services, now in police, fire, ambulance. If you cut too big of a percentage out of your budget year over year in emergency services, so cleaner language, the county and the city have been financially participating in supporting Richland EMS. If those entities cut too much from their budget, you can lose 15% of your state aid, which was done at the state level to protect emergency services, to keep them from being gutted out of a budget if a budget crunch came, because those are critical services. So the statute does not state that the city of Richland Center, for instance, must provide an ambulance service. I can't imagine not doing that, but it says may. But in a different law, if we cut too much, you can lose 15% of your state aid, which would be absolutely catastrophic, and that's why they did that. I believe, and again, I'm not a lawyer, guys. I'm trying to share as much information with the public as I can, but I don't have complete information. I believe the county's in the same scenario, that I'm sure they are, that if too much was cut from the public safety budget, they could lose 15% of the state aid. It's complicated stuff, guys. This is not easy, but I don't want to scare everybody, but I want to make sure I have your attention, because it's the ambulance service. We're not talking about an ice cream shack. Okay, end of the day, we'll get it. because everybody, it's not just that we know we need it. Anybody knows we need it. The point is, Richland Center, Richland County, the townships, Boaz, but we don't just need it. We want it. We get it. We know this has to get sorted out. It just got complex and expensive, and it made a lot of people uptight because that's what that does. But we're not done yet. We'll get done, and we'll keep going.
The last time he was here, Representative Kurtz left our studio, and you had a meeting with him. And, our school situation is not much better. Our public schools are still hurting. I understand maybe even less state aid for some of our local schools. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'll touch that in just a second. Great point, Phil. Since you mentioned Tony Kurtz, yes, he was just here, about 10 days ago, and I met with him. It was a great meeting. Senator Sarah Kieski was here a few days before, so I'm not being a favorite. One Republican, one Democrat, both great meetings. Okay, so Tony Kurtz and Senator Howard Markline, who, of course, is also a Republican, have sponsored multiple efforts to help with EMS. A recent one that was passed provides funding for training of EMTs and things like that. And there is another bill pending that Tony and Howard, I believe, are the co-authors. I think that's right. I know they're on it. I think they're the co-authors that would make it easier, I'll say it that way, for a group of municipalities. So it could be, for instance, Richland Center and several of our townships, maybe Boaz is in it or whatever, to form a district and to have a mechanism in there that would allow that district to have a way to fund itself. I'm not going to say more than that. I'll leave that to Tony. That has number, at least when he was telling me, had not been voted on yet, so I can't imagine it has at this point either. But the reason I said that, Tony and Howard have both made EMS a very important part of what they're doing, because this isn't a Richland Center or a Richland County thing. If you watch the news, Fitch-Rona, which is Fitchburg, Verona, just went through a funding crisis with their ambulance service, the whole Fox Valley. The same thing is happening everywhere. Costs ran up. Volunteer EMTs are disappearing. You're having to go to paid paramedics, which again increase costs. It's worth the money, but you got to pay for it. So the EMS stuff has really gotten hot in the state of Wisconsin, and Tony and Howard deserve credit for trying to help with that. Okay, to your question about the schools, yeah, not good news, not fun news. So Tony Kurtz, I'm saying this to give him credit. When I met with him Monday a week ago, we talked about this, and I said something about, I'd seen an article online, actually posted by Civic Media, that listed off the state aid cuts that several local districts were getting, significant at Weston and Kickapoo, and really significant at all of them. But those were the two that really stood out to me, but also River Valley, Riverdale, Richland Center, Ithaca, all projected to receive less state aid than they'd been getting. And I thought, wow, what's going on? So I said to Tony, I said, geez, I saw this article from Civic Media about all these districts having cuts to their state aid. And Tony looked right at me. He said, Todd, I'm going to correct you. There weren't any cuts. He said, we're spending as much money as we did. In fact, we increased what we're spending on special education. I said, well, what happened then? And he said, the school district in Milwaukee, which is by far the largest in the state, those voters in April passed a $252 million referendum. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a state official. I can't give you all the details on this, but you can look it up online. I did. What that did, when Milwaukee's voters approved a $252 million referendum, that touched off a formula the state uses, which was adopted, I want to say, in 1995. I think that's right. That caused a reallocation of state aid to the public school districts throughout the state. And the article I read, which is actually a link Tony sent me, you can Google it and find it. That article stated that the Milwaukee School District was set to receive, I want to say, $48 million in additional state aid. Well, that's coming out of the same pool that it always did. So think of it like this. If 48 million that was going a little bit here and a little bit there goes to Milwaukee, that's 48 million less for everybody else. And so however this formula works, that's the part I just don't know that. It set in motion a reallocation that led to cuts at hundreds, plural, of school districts in the state. There's no way out of this that I've heard yet. I think it is what it is. And so I don't know how you could blame the administration at Weston, at Kickapoo, at Riverdale, River Valley, Richland Center, wherever the next ones are, because it's going to be everybody out here. For this, they didn't have anything to say about it, but they've got to contend with it. They've got to live with it and adjust accordingly. And it's either cut things or attempt a referendum to get back where you were. And man, that's disheartening. I don't know what else to say about that, because there's nothing that anybody that is out here in the Richland Center area. I mean, this was a referendum in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And we're all out here going, hey, hold on a minute. We're small in the first place. We're fighting for every dollar. But believe me, folks, when I tell you, every place right now is fighting for money. Every place right now is fighting for money. Schools, counties, townships, villages, cities. It does. This whole state, and probably the whole country, but I assure you, this state is trying to figure it out with real challenges. Ask yourself a question. If your public safety budget increased by in excess of $200,000 per year, which Richland Centers has, and your tax levy by state law in the same time frame that your bills just for public safety increase more than $200,000 per year, if your tax levy by state law increased $3,300. That's reality. That's what's going on in Richland Center right now. It's not just Richland Center. Call any mayor you want and ask them how it's going. Call any county administrator you want and ask them how it's going. Inflation got red hot. The law we're working with hasn't changed. If you don't get new construction, you don't get new money. And you live in a place that's rural, that doesn't naturally attract as much building as a place like Dane County. You live in a place that's got rugged terrain that makes it harder to build. You live in a place with a lot of floodplain, makes it harder to build. And you find yourself saying, well, what do we need to do? We need to build. And where do we need to build? Where we can. And when do we need to do it? As soon as we can. And I'll do that math one more time. If your public safety budget increased more than $200,000 per year and your tax levy by state law increased $3,300 per year, what would you do? Thank you to our 8 older persons who are committed with myself, our city administrator and our financial officer and our city department heads to finding the answers to questions like that, because those are the questions that we're all being forced to answer right now. If you think it's a Richland Center thing and you want to start kicking us, go for it. Then call Dane County. How come they're short $31 million? Why do I see online an effort to save the outdoor pool in Baraboo, do you think? Why is La Crosse looking for more than $2 million to cut out of their budget, do you think? Why did Prairie du Chien cut 23 programs from their school district, do you think? It's all the same answer. It's all the same answer. Basically, inflation and what things cost simply got too hot and overran the ability to pay the bills at the local level. And unless, it just comes down to this. You have the money you have and you have the bills you have. And it's not fun. But I'm being honest with the people. I always have been. You got to be ready for some tough decisions at the city level, at the county level, in your township, because business as usual simply can't happen now. The things that you're used to that were always just paid for and you assumed would never leave. Don't assume that anymore. Because unless there is a significant change in legislation at the state level, the local governments, city, county, township, school, will have to do more with less. It's tough math. It's tough math. But it's the reality. And this is why we need people to step up and serve. We live in a country that allows a representative form of government, which is a very big deal. Should never be taken for granted, even when you're mad at the government, which I know a lot of people are right now all over the country, and I know why. Okay, but don't ever underestimate the significance of living in a country that has government from its people for its people. You have to realize, and this is why I'm not running for re-election, I've done 3 terms as mayor. I'll be done in April. I don't believe any human being should serve more than 3 terms. And the reason is it's a representative form of government. It was never meant to be somebody's job. It's not supposed to be where you drop anchor for 30 years. I don't like it when I see that in Washington, D.C. I think a lot of people don't like it. So I put a term limit on myself of 3 terms. But that means we're going to need a new mayor. And that means we need candidates. We need people to come down in December and take out nomination papers. That's when I'll sign what's called a declaration of non-candidacy. And that's when we need people to grab nomination papers, get signatures from throughout the city, turn them in, and get on the ballot for mayor, for city council. I'm sure county board is going to have some openings. I would assume they will at the school board as well. But, okay. None of that works. Representative government does not work without representatives. That means people, and that means you. And if you want to make a difference in your town, imagine, I'll just stay with the city, there are only 8 members of the city council. There are 8 votes when the budget gets passed. There are 8 votes every month when the bills get paid. There are 8 votes on a potential new ordinance or resolution. These critical decisions, they come from 8 people. The mayor breaks a tie if there is one, so there could be 9. And that's it. That's the total. And that makes those positions critically important. And so I hope that some of the people listening to me will be inspired and do what I've done, which is don't just sit home and tell everybody how much the people that are doing things stink. Don't go on Facebook and say things you don't know anything about. Show up. Get your name on a ballot and make decisions and represent your city. Because nobody can build yesterday. It happened. Nobody can build today. We're here. A small group of people at all times will be responsible for building tomorrow. Will be responsible for creating the Richland Center of the future, the Richland County of the future, the Ithaca School District of the future, the Yuba of the future. That takes elected people, and that takes candidates. And the time to take out papers and run for office is in December. And in the city, you do that by coming down to the city clerk's office and telling them that's what you want to do. And I hope some of you listening to me will hear this, take it to heart, and make that choice.
Well said, Mayor Todd, as always. We'll see you in December.
Thank you very much, Phil.
You bet. Mayor Todd Coppernoll joining us for this portion of the morning show on WRCO.